Mostly, I mean, yeah. And then you can, I think you can upvote. Yeah, click upvote if you use Claude. Just curious how many people here mostly use Claude. I posted this in the chat. 14 people, and at 15 we're gonna start. Woohoo! Okay, 15 people. We're gonna start now. And click share screen. Share screen. I hope it can share everything. Yes, here. Okay, so I will sometimes go into the chat. You can launch picture-in-picture mode to watch your meeting in a floating window while you navigate between different apps. I have no idea what this means. I don't want floating. Okay, cool. Thank you everyone for joining. So this talk is about harder prompts with GPT. I'm a Bubble and Xano developer. And why me? So why do I do this talk? I have Bubble since 6 years, so I know how slow Bubble used to be. I've worked with AI since 2 years. I mean, like most of you, maybe one of the things which sets me apart, maybe most of you do this already, but I have made some apps which spend $1,000 per week on calls to GPT. You know, if you think about it, where is this worth it? For example, in the consulting or finance industry, right? They hire like 10 analysts to analyze one company, and suddenly GPT can do what one analyst who is paid 30,000, 50,000 a year can do. So that's why you want, as a company, maybe to spend 1,000 per week on GPT. Because all these companies, McKinsey, Accenture, love GPT. It will make them much more profitable. And I have elite prompting skills. What does this mean? I mean, this is my only opportunity for a joke in this talk. So sometimes AI ignores what you give it, right? So I found that there's different persuasion techniques to use. And one of the best is if you write at the end, you must follow these directions, otherwise I will leave my family and my job. So if you do both of these, usually it follows directions. This is quite crazy, right? That you can manipulate an LLM. And why? Because AI knows that this is a deadly combination. If you leave both family and job, it just means that no one will make LLMs and improve them, right? Okay, so going away from the jokes, you know, the advertisements now, what am I working on? With a friend on faster ways to interact with GPT for frequent users who use this daily. And so you can join the waiting list here on promptfaster.ai. And we suggest you the next prompts to save you time typing, or even sequences of prompts if you always do the same things one after another. And so this is kind of what I will cover in this session. Is basic GPT 3.5 for setup for longer variable prompts, then a GPT 4.0 setup with this new logical mathematical reasoning for variable prompts, and just kind of showing you how to save the JSON that GPT produces. JSON manipulator and JSON machine plugin will both be used. These are very good plugins to use. I'll just have a quick look in case I missed any chat comments. Feel free to use the chat. Probably there are lots of people. This session is recorded indeed automatically, so you will be able to see it if you have a really important call now, but please just bear with me. Okay, so what is a longer prompt? So sometimes you do not just ask GPT, you know, what's up, please give me the code for this HTML. Sometimes you have a text and you want to analyze it, and you not only want a basic text response, like what is the time now, but actually you want 1 or 3 or 5 responses. So imagine if we go back here, we're looking at the Roman Empire. We're a consulting organization. The Roman Empire is paying us because, you know, it's about to end. And the Roman Empire has a lot of input, right? All this stuff. And sometimes we do not just want one output. We do not just want to ask, when was the victory of Octavian? But we want to ask, give me a short summary, a long summary, and give me the most important number. Yeah. And so you have 3 outputs, or maybe 5. And so this is what this talk is about, what I mean with longer prompts. So 1 to 3 or even 10 responses, one of them. Type number. So basically what I've created using Bubble is a no-code prompt creator. I'll give you a quick look how this looks. So here we are creating a widget. For example, we can name this widget to text and number. And here we're just going to use GPT, not Claude. And we can give it a prompt like summarize the text once into 1 paragraph, then into 140 characters. Then give me as output the most important number in the text. And then we also in the prompt tell it respond in JSON format with parameters summary long, type text, summary short, type text, then number, type number. And then after we give it this prompt, we give it this whole text here on the Roman Empire, as we're a consulting organization helping the Roman Empire out 1,000 years ago. And we paste it in here. And we've also told it here that there will be these parameters, right? Summary long, summary short, and number, the most important number. And then we click test, and we hope that it works like it worked in all my tests and preparations. And yay, a response was created. And we have a first, a second text, and a number. So it worked. Now I have to check my notes. So quickly, what did we even have to do here? Is this really simple, or what is happening here behind the scenes? So I think you can gather that there is a data type called widgets, where we just tell it that this is the prompt, right? And now the next part is a widget parameter. So we could describe what each part of the prompt should look like. So here we told it that there will be a summary long, a summary short, and a number. We can even create parameters here. So it's like a no-code parameter creator for JSON. Why do we need this? Because we told GPT to output JSON, and JSON looks kind of like this. And as some of you may know, Bubble is not great at reading this. So therefore, we need to tell Bubble what it has to look for. Specifically, we're using a plugin called JSON Manipulator, which I'll show you the workflow steps of, to kind of help it. This one parameter we're looking for is summary long, give me all the text after summary long. Then this one is called summary short, give me all the text here. And here, give me the number. So this is kind of what we're working for. And then when we click run, we're of course running 1 or 2 API calls. And here what we see is a response. This is just a place where the user can test responses. So we even have 2 data types. One is response, one is test response. This is a test response. And then we have a sub response, because also a new data type, because here this is for the first summary long parameter, this is for summary short, and this is for number. Okay, let's just have a quick look if there were any questions or anything here. No, okay, all clear, or really boring in the background. Okay, so widget parameter, a test response, a response, and a sub response. And then what kind of workflows can we expect? So first of all, if we go back here, this is a no-code, I guess, prompt creator, right? So before we click this button called test, we don't even know yet how many parameters there will be. So we will have to kind of do a condition, is there 1 parameter or more parameters? And then depending on more parameters, then we have to do a workflow for each parameter, as you can expect. And then we have to also add a logic, is it a test or a real response? And then do one API call to GPT. This is here what we saw saved here. This is the response of the one API call to GPT. So it returns the JSON. And then we use this JSON to create the sub responses. Okay. And then let's look at the actual workflow here. So we have here the button test. Or yeah. And so we're just here, maybe first, if we click create parameter, all we're doing is we're creating a widget parameter, which saves the parameter name, like the summary long, but also the widget we just created. And then even, is it a text, is it a number, or something else? And maybe even, is it a button? Because then in the repeating group, we can even show like a button instead of a text to be a kind of variable in the repeating group card formatting. Okay, and then if we click test, what happens? We first schedule an API workflow called all. We schedule it now. We use the widget we just created. And then here we ask it, are there multiple parameters. So is there more than one widget parameter for this widget? So yes, we had summary, short, long, and number. So yes, it will evaluate as yes. Of course, you could argue first item is not empty, greater 0, all these VU things. But here at the moment, we're just interested in getting the job done quickly for an MVP. Okay, and then the prompt is arbitrary text because we're concatenating, meaning we want to, when we pass it to GPT, we have this prompt as well as the whole Roman Empire text, right? So therefore, we use arbitrary text, and we have both here, the multi-line 1 and 2. And then if we look at the API call, how does this look? First, we do a post to a GPT, and then we create a response, but only if test is no. Otherwise, it depends, are we testing or not? This was the test page. And then we create the test response, saving the content. It's obvious. And now, however, if it's a so if there's more than one parameter, we do schedule API workflow on a list. On what? On the widget parameters. Which widget parameter is the one of this widget, like the summary, short, and long, and number. And then this widget parameter. So it goes widget parameter by widget parameter. And then each time taking the message content. And then here we have to do some find and replace to take out kind of this. Here you may remember this stuff Bubble sometimes doesn't like. So we might need a find and replace for this. And then the response or the test response is the one that we just created. Yeah, so that's what we do. We just go parameter by parameter, and we kind of look in this JSON, we pass on for summary long and extract the text, then summary short, and then extract the text. So to do that specifically, if we take this API call, note here I'm numbering the API calls so they're next to each other. We use the read JSON field server. Where do we get this from? This is a plugin called JSON Manipulator. And then we read it, and we tell it here the text, which we passed on, and the parameter name. So therefore, it can work with however many parameters it works. And then we create the sub-response, saving the text, the string, or if it's type number, saving the number, because this JSON manipulator plugin allows us to extract different types of formats, not just string or text, number, Boolean, list of numbers, etc. Okay, and so going back to here, we can therefore here have this repeating group, which shows all widget test responses. And then inside it even, we then have another repeating group of the sub-responses, which we, of course, only show if there's more than one sub-response, which there would only be if there's more than one parameter. Okay, let's have a quick look. If there are any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Okay, none. And so we go back to our beautiful PowerPoint. Yeah, we found the prompt parameters, found if it's a test or not, and do one API call, and then go through the response kind of parameter by parameter, extracting the right JSON. Okay, but as some of you may know, there's also GPT 4.0 since not all too long. And this is very cool because it kind of does what I just did in much shorter. So I'm going to show you that in the API connector setup. So kind of the old setup, which I'm guessing most of you know, is that you have the API connector. It's just a GPT post request, chat completions, and here it's all it is your helpful assistant content prompt. Okay, but the cool thing is if you check the documentation from OpenAI and go to structured outputs, you can actually now tell it in this 4.0 model to do what you want. You define the whole entire JSON schema, tell it math reasoning, and you can tell it GPT exactly what is which output properties there are in here, and even if they're required or not. So you can define the entire JSON here. So you know what we did here yes, this is, I will decide that there is a JSON property called title and summary, but I could have all of this dynamic, right? I could have the entire object that I define here completely dynamic, exactly like the user wants, and that's very powerful. And so here, just to show you this in action, if we go to step by step, here, let's click preview here. And then how do I make a cake? Strawberry cake, let's do it. We click run here. And we can then basically have a repeating group, which is immediately generated with first kind of the key inside the short summary, then the a bit longer summary, and then the very long summary. So immediately it takes this. Let's look at this again in step by step, what happens. So what we're doing here, in this case, we're not creating data types, we're just setting a state. I'll show you a bit more on that later. But basically, it immediately outputs exactly the JSON we specified in the API connector with these different parameters, which is very cool. And what we can also do, depending how far you are with Bubble, is that if you created this API connector call, that means that when you create a state, as we created this one here, let's create a new state, we can basically use any of the API connector calls as the state. So this allows us to save it. So it's not a data type, but an API connector is the kind of response is the data type. And then what we do here is we have, again, this time the plugin JSON machine, and we drag it onto the editor. And we tell it, in this case, that the key is called summaries, because we defined this in this case here. And then we tell it to take the entire JSON text message content. This was the state. And then in the repeating group, we can take read JSON A's, and here we can do all these things, get list of JSON texts. And then in the repeating group, again, we can, for example, have another read JSON, which just takes the title parameter. And here then takes the read JSON C's, this is plugin text value. Yeah, and so it kind of allows us to take all the parts of the JSON from one GPT API call, which we define in the API connector here. So be sure to have a look at structured outputs, because they allow you kind of to define exactly how the object looks. Or in other words, you can also kind of do it, I guess, the more slow way, even though, of course, GPT 3.5 is a bit faster than this 4.0 because it uses reasoning. 4.0 is a bit slower, but it just allows us to kind of create all these things by telling it exactly how one parameter looks like, and then going through parameter by parameter to find out exactly what JSON it needs to save and show in a repeating group. Yeah, so I think that was basically it. It splits this list of text into singular texts. And yeah, if there's a way you do this, maybe there's a plugin you use, do mention it in the chat. Or I'd be curious if you use a different plugin or a different method. And if there's any questions you have, do ask them in the chat. I'm also on Twitter as Tips Bubble, or in the Bubble forum, you may have seen me. And yeah, if you're interested in using AI, very frequently and save time, do check out promptfaster.ai and join our waiting list. We're building some tools to make it a great experience to use GPT daily. Thank you. Let's check any questions. So far, I see none. Okay, I guess That's it. I'll wait maybe 30 more seconds in case you have some questions. But yeah, we basically have this GPT call. We do one post request to GPT and then schedule on a list of all the text that GPT's response send us. We schedule another API call, which goes parameter by parameter to find out the right text to extract from the JSON, which looks like this. OpenAI assistants. I have personally not used OpenAI assistants, but yeah, a lot of people are even making businesses using this. Yeah, I am aware of this too. Cool. Well, thank you. Have a nice day. I'll see you in further sessions. Bye. Okay, you could see me. Okay, cool. Do I develop just assistants? So no, I do not develop assistants. I'm just making, or it's just the idea, to make it like easier to interact with GPT, because here, if you use this, it's kind of hard to search things. You always have to type very long instead of short. It's hard. You always have to scroll up. There's like a lot of small pain points we have with this interface, and we're just trying to improve it and make it so that you can not only use GPT, but Claude and all these things in an interface, which makes it easier to interact with AI for daily active users. Maybe you also have some pain points when you use AI. Do you have Twitter? What's your Twitter tag? Maybe we can write a bit on there. Fortunately, I have to leave soon. I have a live event coming up after online. Crazy. Online to live. Okay, thank you. Eugenio, I'm just curious, where you're from? Muy bien, okay. Cool, I actually speak some Spanish. Cool, I'll be in touch. Thanks for your interest. It's always nice to see people who are passionate about new innovations. Have a good day, man.